Hello, everyone. A warm welcome. We're all just coming in from all of our respected places. What a beautiful welcome by Tony. Um, it's so wonderful to have you back with us in starting off this presencing series. My name is Antoinette, and we're just going to be starting in a moment here. So we'll give everyone a minute to just come in, say hello in the chat. Tony, thank you again for opening us in this way. Beautiful. So I see coming in the chat Barcelona, Macedonia, Switzerland, Japan, Ireland, India, Boston, Massachusetts, Bulgaria, Venezuela, Austria. Wonderful. There's just so many of us coming in from all over the world. We're at about 500 so far and still climbing. So wow, what a joy to be together in a moment on planet Earth that it is really good to have each other. Let's put it that way. And we are very much looking forward to this session. I'll pull up some slides here with our wonderful team to just welcome us all in all of our wonderful languages. Um, so I hope that you feel really welcomed and landing here as we enter this moment of presencing together. In order to do this, many of you are already in the chat. If you need support with captions, we have a captions option today, so you can click in the bottom right, either the More button or you might see Show Captions right there. You can click on that and you can put the translation button. You can toggle that on so that you can see your own language in the list, and then you can click on the language that you need. So hopefully that all works out well. We have wonderful team members in the chat who can help you if you're struggling with the captions. Thank you, Maria, for putting that also into the text chat box here. Wonderful. So we are going to get started, but maybe before I do that, we share a little bit about our journey here today. Um, so perhaps we pull that up. Our agenda is going to be the opening music, as you just heard by Tony. Um, Tony leads us in and will be with us throughout the session. We're really lifting up the social arts. So the ability to sense into our field and to each other with powerful resonance practices by Tony, and we'll spotlight Kelvy in a moment. Jace is also with us, so we'll share more of that. I'll turn it over to Otto in just a moment, who will welcome us and frame us. He is co-hosting this session with me. He's also really leading and holding this movement with this wonderful team of Presencing Institute. We have a couple of speakers with us today, Christa Barfield and Zuzanna Zielinska. So very exciting to have both of them, and we'll go into their own stories and where the kind of intersections are. We'll have ways to engage with ourselves and with each other with journaling. We'll have an opportunity to connect with our speakers directly with a panel discussion and dialogue, and we'll have a harvest to really hear from as many of us as possible in this room. But a lot of the magic really happens in this kind of connecting with each other with these moments here. So we'll have time for that. And we will close with our visual resonance. So a practice for us to be able to connect with some of Kelvy's work, and then we'll close and share with each other. So that's the kind of overview for today. But if you have questions, you can put it directly in the chat. And if you have already signed up, you should know a little bit about what we're doing today as part of a larger series. And maybe we can pull up that piece. This is the wonderful artwork that many of you have already seen. And this has been put together by Jace, who is joining us from Taipei, Taiwan. the artwork here also is the journey of what we are up to. And I see all of the hearts and applause that are coming in the reaction section. This just breaks down a little bit of what this is. So as you can see, the kind of larger image breaks down into these 6 sessions. Um, Today we're focusing on soil health, human health, and planetary well-being. So really looking at what are the pathways for regenerative economies. On April 2nd, we'll be focusing on reclaiming human agency. So that'll be the second part of our series, Navigating AI, Social Fracture, and Polarization. And then on April 23rd, we'll begin our Regenerative Futures Lab. We'll have 3 of those sessions, which is really a more open space where everyone can bring in their ideas, where we can kind of co-sense the future that we're already feeling emerging within each of us. So that will be more of a lab kind of space. You see the presencing session will happen May 7th. And then the Regenerative Futures Lab will continue on May 21st and June 18th. So we are sensing into and building into the possibilities together. And today, as I mentioned, we are focusing on soil health, human health, and planetary well-being. So wonderful. Again, if you have any questions or if you want more information, you can go to the presencinginstitute.org site and take a look at that and start to connect with these sessions, with each other. As I mentioned today, we're joined by a wonderful team. I get to host this, but we have an incredible team who's really doing the hosting. So we see Kelvy here. Kelvy is with us throughout the session. You can, at any time, in Kelvy, and I have been in many rooms together, and it just feels like we're taking the kind of in-person wall space that Kelvy has been holding, and we're bringing it into this virtual space, but it just feels very good, very full circle. I don't know, good isn't really the word, but it just feels like this is the place where when you are kind of doing your own processing or connecting with what's going on, Kelvy is going to be using the work of the hands to scribe and share what's moving through her in this whole session. And Kelvy, I think of us sometimes as lightning rods, and I see so much kind of moving through you in these sessions that then resonates in me with so many of us. So at any time you can pin or spotlight um, her image here, and you can connect in with the live work of the hands that Kelvy is working on. So thank you, Kelvy. I see some other team members who I'll just mention right now. If you're looking for support in the chat, we have Denise, Diane, Maria, Patricia is here, I see as well. Stefan is producing. We have wonderful team members, and I'm so sorry if I'm missing anyone, but I think I may have got us all today. So wonderful. Let's land for a minute and just be here fully together. Perhaps we just take a breath and maybe just let out any breath, let go of anything that may have happened before this moment, letting go of any aspects that it may have taken to get us here. There's 730 of us in this room. We've all kind of pulled up our chair, pulled up our, you've taken off our coat and landed here today. And if you are struggling with captions, we're working on it in the background. If that's not working, we will invite you to take the session in the best possible way you can today, and we will work on getting the captions up shortly. That said, let's just take a deep breath together. So if you can get both feet on the ground, I'll keep inviting us back to the breath throughout the session. There's a lot of information that comes up in these moments, and the invitation is just to stay with ourselves and to sense into what is moving through us as human beings. We're not just a Zoom screen. We're humans connected to planet Earth and connected here in this moment with our hearts and connected to the possibilities that live within each of us. So just taking a breath, remembering that at every moment, and I'll turn it over to Otto, who will take us into our session together.
Thank you, Antoinette, and a warm welcome also from me. Hello to everyone. It's wonderful to see you and to feel us being together here in this moment. I want to, before we launch into the wonderful stories by Christa and Zuzanna, I want to invite you for a brief reflection on our current moment. We know that we live in a time of rupture, not transition. We know we live in a time of fracture, not fragmentation. And we know that we live in a time of geopolitical othering and absencing that has just brought us into yet another senseless war in the Middle East and beyond, launched by Netanyahu and Trump, that is well on their way to create massive destructions that in the end will hurt almost everyone and benefit almost no one. But perhaps the most striking development of our time is this. On the other, and perhaps the more silent side of this civilizational rupture, fracture, and absencing, we begin to see the emergence of a new awareness and of inspiring living examples for radical regeneration that carry the seeds for new ways of working and living together, shifting institutional practices from extraction to regeneration and from ecosystem awareness to ecosystem awareness. That is also true. In the first Presencing series last year, we introduced the concept of social soil. And if you allow me kind of to pull up the image that some of you may remember, I grew up on a regenerative farm in Germany. And what I learned from my father, who 68 years ago kind of converted that farm from conventional to regenerative, is this, that the quality of everything that's growing above the ground, including the quality of the harvest, is a function of the quality of the soil. And today, many decades later, and many thousand miles away from that farm, when I really think about what I'm doing, I'm still doing the same thing. Just that in my case, and perhaps also in your case, the field that we are working with is not only the field of the farmer, but the social field. And the social field also has these two main components. There's kind of the visible part, the observable, the tangible systems, the practical results that we create. And then there is the less visible part, right? The social soil, by which we mean the quality of our relationships and the quality of our awareness. And our role, right, as farmers and as social farmers, as farmers and gardeners of the social field, is to engage in these practices. And that's kind of really what we try to do as a community in this planetary moment that we are in. And last time, kind of, we went through, we applied this distinction of the social soil on the lower half and the social systems on the upper half, and went through a bunch of examples. And what we learned is that the current moment is, the mainstream is basically still driven by extractive practices. The innovative practices that we have seen have brought us towards sustainable practices. But what we have seen over the past years is this hyper extraction, the backlash, right? It's getting worse than it was before. And yet, on the hyper extraction of our attention and of the soil, of the planet. And yet, what we see on the backside of that is the emergence of regenerative practices. And that's really kind of what we would love to hear. And that's kind of what Christa's and Zuzanna's story will lead us into. And when you listen to that, you will learn kind of how these stories that Christa and Zuzanna and many others of us share begin, right? As we move into this regenerative space, we are cutting across all these different sectors and systems. And as we do that, we see the embodiment of seeds that can shift our operating system from egocentric and control and efficiency to ecocentric and cosmocentric, by which we mean an awareness of the whole field that includes the living planet and that includes future generation. So as you listen to Christa's and Zuzanna's story, pay attention to two things. One, how are these stories cutting across all these sectors that you see up here? And two, how are the stories that they share embodying these practices that really make all the difference? Becoming aware, generative listening, deep sensing and dialogue, connecting with future possibilities, and learning by doing. Antoinette, over to you.
Thank you, Otto, for framing this session and the series. And I am just going to take a moment to introduce Christa, who I've met recently and have been very inspired by. She's a lifelong resident of Philadelphia and had a career in the healthcare administration. And we talk often about a moment of pause, or the Ma, as our dear friend and master teacher, shares. And Christa took that very literally, and she took a pause in her job and her way of looking at the world, and she took a journey and moved back toward the land and toward her community. And we are all just getting to see what is emerging with Farmer Jawn, which is an organic farm that spans over 100 acres. And she's sitting at at this intersection of food justice and ecological healing. And she's looking at economic sustainability and community belonging. Um, I've found that her presence is it it comes in before she does into a room, and I can feel it now. So I'm just really grateful to have you here, Christa, for the work that you've been doing at these intersections that often seem like they are inaccessible for so many of us, to have this even this kind of depth of understanding around what does it mean to be healthy, that it really comes from food, that it comes from having economic access. So from sitting just a few states away, even in this global community, I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing, and glad that you're here with us. So I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to the Presencing community. And yes, let's get started. So yes, my name is Christa, and that is spelled Christ with an A. And that's a little trick my mother taught me so people wouldn't spell my name with a K or call me Christina. So as you can imagine, it doesn't always work, but I'm hoping that'll help you remember. I was born in the 1980s and raised in the great 90s. I grew up in Philadelphia, as Antoinette said. I love science. I am a full-on nerd. Before Farmer Jawn, if you Googled me, you would have found that Christa Barfield won third place in regional science fairs at Penn State. So I went to a science high school in North Philadelphia near Temple University, for anyone familiar. If you know about Temple, it does not get any more inner city than that. I also had the great pleasure of being a Girl Scout. I earned a Gold Award. That's actually the highest service honor in the organization. And so you see, I've always lived and evoked this life of service. And now I get to live a life in service to soil. So fast forward to the 2010s, I'm working in healthcare for some of the best doctors in the world. I work in Center City, Philadelphia. I love my colleagues. I have great relationships with my doctors. I even have my own parking spot in Center City. So I was really doing it, you know? But there was a reality to my work. You know, we saw over 1,000 patients a week. My team and I had the great responsibility of making sure those visits were pre-authorized, checked in, checked out, and ultimately paid for. You know, we were the faces, the first ones that people saw when they walked in the door, the last ones they saw when they left, people they talked to before they even came in and after sometimes. So when I left work, work was typically coming home with me. There was nothing natural about this pace. And I didn't really fully realize that, honestly, how sustainable it was until January 2nd, 2018. I walked into work. I sat down at my desk, excited for a new year. I opened a raggedy email from my boss. I read through it and I immediately responded with a new thread titled Resignation. Not long after that moment, I found myself in Martinique, where I met my first Airbnb host in La Montagne. I met a Thai chef and his partner, Alan Tawich, made me cups of tea every morning. I watched them pick herbs from their backyard and put them in a mug, and that was tea. And now, mind you, I was on this trip by myself. I decided to take this leap first time out of the country and go do something that was truly about regenerating me. So to have this experience where I'm watching them pick herbs right from their backyard and pour hot water over it, that was a beautiful and new experience. And the same trip, next, I went to a different part of the island. The island's called Montrouge. And that's where my new Airbnb host just so happened to be Black farmers. Papa Kadas, he says, I know you're here by yourself and it's your 30th birthday and you just resigned from your job. I told him all of this in my description as I'm picking this Airbnb. And he says, you know, one of my sons would be happy to take you around the island tomorrow. And so we did. After hours of sightseeing and eating good food, he says, hey, I need to go to work. It's been great hanging out. But if you'd like to join me, you're welcome to. I can also take you back to the house. So, of course, I agreed to come to wherever work is. And I hadn't even asked, I just decided to go. And while going along, I got a chance to witness the beauty of watching them pack boxes of fresh herbs, vegetables, and fruits, all that they picked that day. They placed a white envelope with names of the families they were serving on each of those envelopes. And the real joy of that is I got to see people start walking in, dropping 20 euros in this envelope and then taking their box and saying, a biento. And I'm like, wow, what is this? I had never experienced this in Philadelphia. I was only on that island for 5 days and I left knowing that I was going to return home unemployed, living off of savings. But I was going to be a farmer. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And so, how that started to manifest itself is my mere survival. I needed to supplement those savings. And so, I drove Uber and Lyft from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. every day. And then 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., I would deliver groceries. And in the middle of the day is where I would mastermind. It's like, how do I become a farmer? I started to volunteer on people's farms. And even doing that, I realized that me weeding and packing vegetables in bags for those farmers, while it was a great service to them, it wasn't actually going to move the needle for me understanding how to be a farmer and how to run a farm. But something shifted inside of me. I saw land being respected in Martinique. I saw food grown with intention. I saw people connected to their soil. So when I did get home, I just decided that I would just start. I started a tea company and I started a farm. And today that has blossomed into so much. We're 8 years in, and that farm has grown into the largest Black-owned produce farm in the state of Pennsylvania and in my region. Very unexpected, just putting one foot in front of the other. And now on 128 acres, I am finally eligible for my regenerative organic certification. Something I am so proud of, being able to see land and see soil, heal land, heal soil, that could ultimately then heal people. This is a reincarnation of my healthcare career. And I didn't recognize it or realize it until I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. The story really began to tell itself to me. And I always say that agriculture found me. So now I've spent 1/5 of my life as a farmer and entrepreneur. So now you get a little bit of an idea of who I am, a bit more about me. And it's really important for you to understand my why. So as I walk through just a couple of scenarios of conversations I've had with people over the years, you'll hear me ask a question. And I'm also going to answer that question with these words. Agriculture is the culture. So as I speak and you hear and you listen and you hear me say, is it worth it? I want you to just think those words. Say those words to yourself. Agriculture is the culture. Okay. So Christa, we saw, in 2024, you won a James Beard Award for your commitment to soil and food systems. And we see you really doing great things. You sit on the board of some prestigious organizations in regenerative organic agriculture. You're really making a big difference in moving the needle. And we just love how you're being celebrated and supported in community. Yes, that's absolutely right. And I am so grateful and gracious. But what you probably didn't see in the background is that in the same year I won that James Beard, in the same year I got to join the illustrious board of Rodale Institute, I also, unfortunately, there was an 8-foot swastika that was painted on my barn. Clearly a protest of me coming into a community where people mostly don't look like me, where I'm healing land and wanting to feed people healthy food. That's when I realized that the uninvited guests on the farm weren't just the high population of deer. Is it worth it? Agriculture is the culture. Krista, we see you're doing such amazing work. You're paying your team $50,000 to $80,000 a year, farmers. You're showing this industry that you can center people and profit at the same time, and you can pay farmers a living wage. This is not a pauper occupation if everybody has to eat. Yeah, I say yes. You think, right? What people didn't see is all the sacrifice that was put into this. As an entrepreneur, this is many people's story. But for me, I centered others before myself. I've been housing insecure for many years, wanting to make sure that I was reinvesting every dollar back into my business, putting my team first. And in those moments, I always asked myself, is this worth it? Yes, agriculture is the culture. I always come back to that, centering. Krista, we see your work connects food and medicine. You're a healthcare professional that turned into a farmer. And when you say food is medicine, it means something different because you understand both sides of that coin. You are helping people rethink health in real, tangible ways. And I say, yes, I'm so honored that you recognize that you see this. But I also need you to look at the world around us. The wildfires in Canada, that smoke was drifting across cities into Philadelphia region, and beyond. My team was wearing N95 masks while we were still harvesting food. Los Angeles burning, flooding increasing worldwide, urban heat islands expanding, topsoil disappearing. Native bees are almost extinct. Is it worth it? Again, I say agriculture is the culture. Because agriculture, yes, is where your food comes from, but it also is what clothes us. It's your beverages, your water quality, your air quality, your medicine. And it's even the tables that you're eating on. Agriculture is really the relationship between people, land, and future. And my work, a Jawn from Philadelphia, growing food, is about reminding people that when we care about where our food comes from, we automatically improve environmental health, physical health, and social health. I call that the Farmer Jawn formula. Every decision that I make for this organization has to check the box for all three of those. After all, I am a healthcare professional, and public health is really important to me at my core. That is true regeneration. So when I return to the question, it really grounds me for the future that we all deserve. All that I'm putting into this, is it worth it? The only undeniable answer, it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christa. What a beautiful story and what a powerful experience you had. And I see so many of us resonating with agriculture is the culture and what it means to see food as medicine. So thank you so much for sharing. And we're going to come back to a deeper connection and dialogue with this work. But I'll turn it over to Otto now.
What particularly resonated, so I just want to highlight kind of two small things to our and bring it to our attention, right? So your journey started really through disruption and through watching someone picking the herbs in the backyard of your building, right? Kind of those small seeing it and then noticing this deeper level of resonance that you noticed in that moment within yourself.
Mm,
Healing land, soil, people, and then agriculture found me.
mm,
Agriculture found me. That's exactly what we mean with the term awareness of the whole, right? It's not like I see something there, but there is something that is finding me. And that is only finding me if I create the right kind of opening within me. Agriculture is the culture, food is the medicine. And I also really appreciate you pointing out the invisible side, the sacrifice, the the deep questioning, and the courage that it took, right, to bring it all you are and all you have into that, in spite of all the challenges that show up along the way. Thank you.
thank you.
So next, I want to invite Zuzanna to share a little bit of your story. Zuzanna, your story started, I think, when I remember from earlier, we discussed from a composting and coffee waste initiative you took as a student in Denmark and took you all the way to building food pharmacies and agri-health systems in the Netherlands and across Europe. And as a co-founder of Harvest Care, you're now in the midst of reshaping the relationship between soil, food, healthcare, and finance. Thank you so much for joining us. And maybe start with your student days. Kind of what was it kind of that happened in Denmark and that really somehow led to you beginning to activate your own agency.
Thank you so much, Otto. And if that's okay, I'm just going to quickly share a few slides with you so I can accompany my story with some of the pictures. But I think I'm still so moved from what Christa have shared, and I have had privilege to meet Christa in Rodale a few years ago, and I became a psycho fan ever since, and I heard the first time the term agriculture is the culture, and I think I have repeated it so many times already. And wow, we are so many of us here, and I think all of us could be presenting and very impactful and meaningful work of their life. So I feel even more privileged and honored that I get to share with you my story. So I am from Poland. As Otto mentioned, I lived across different European countries for past 10 years. And I started this story with studying in Denmark and environmental nutrition. And we at some point were introduced to the circular economy concept, and I don't know if it's because I'm dyslexic or I'm just a person of doing. Ever since I was taught about this concept of resources being all around us. It was really impossible to kind of just took off the glasses and stop seeing all of the resources are being wasted. And because I was a barista in a coffee shop, just making some extra money aside during my studies, I saw the immense amount of coffee waste that we were throwing off every single day. And that happened that at the same time, it was COVID and we were all locked in the houses, and I passed by a small garden next to the sea, and I thought, wow, what is this garden? I have never felt so grounded and so peaceful and so eager to get to know the garden. So it turned out that this garden was a care farm. A care farm is small farms or gardens which host people with mental disabilities to really use gardening as a way of healing and of treatment. So I immediately started to volunteering in the garden. I knew that this is my place to be. And I started thinking, okay, I love this place so much. I love being there. How can I help? How can I be of more service from what I'm doing now as a volunteer? And somehow just in researching and kind of getting to know first steps of gardening, and of course having the lens of also the nutrition and the health, I thought, oh, okay, but if I want to really support the people there, I need to start from the soil, because what happens in the soil will ultimately affect the nutrition of the plants, and that will affect the human health and the community that we are serving. And back then, when I made this connection, it seems like a very simple and impactful, yet by no means I would understand that by putting those pieces together, and what I thought was quite simple, but actually turned out to be one of the most complex and complicated system. I'll be here now talking to you about agri-health and feeling so connected to the work of Otto's dad when he was presenting it. None of this I could have ever predicted, and I think that's really what I want to emphasize in this story, is that even though we are talking about systemic change and challenging status quo, I never set on doing any of that. I simply was finding small things that I was curious about, and was taking tiny steps which felt scary at that time, but not scary enough not to do them. And those just accumulated, and over time, you just grow and grow your ability to sit in discomfort and challenge yourself and more. So being curious of, okay, I started to do the coffee compost. As you can see, this is my picture from my compost facility in the care farm. And I thought, okay, but if there we have so much waste, there have to be so much more waste around the city. So I went to every single coffee shop I could find in my city, and I said, "What do you do with your coffee waste? What do you do with your coffee waste?" And nobody, beside one lovely lady that was also using it in the garden, nobody really did anything. So I started to do what I think everybody should do when they really fall in love with a problem, is just to just start talking about the problem to every single person. And you become very annoying to your friends and your family, but this is what you have to do. And I also wrote just on the Facebook group of the city members, hey, I would like to do something about the problem. Maybe would somebody would join. And a few weeks later, we have a group of 5 students opening a cooperative, start upcycling the coffee waste into coffee flour. As it turned out, it's very nutritious product with lots of fiber, lots of caffeine. A fun fact: the coffee flour has 3 times amount of caffeine than espresso in 100 grams, which information I did not know before running some late night baking workshops with coffee flour. So that was a good realization to make. But over time, I realized that I kind of went too far from what I originally fall in love, which was the soil and the connection with human health. But thanks to the experience that I have still during university, I already built a bit of a backpack with skills of just understanding a bit, entrepreneurship, and that gave me the ability to join an incubator in the Netherlands, which was all about starting steward-owned regenerative organizations working on transition toward food system. So I kind of make my way out there as the youngest participant, which I was extremely grateful because I was definitely the one that was learning the most. And that was a new chapter which was taking me on several different paths to look for the right pathways for myself. So this is where I met Christa as well back in 2022. For the first time, I went outside of EU, a big trip for me to go to the Rodale Institute for the first Regenerative Healthcare Conference. And I think the reason why I'm putting this picture and putting this as a part of my journey is because I was the only weirdo talking about this, about the soil health connection. It's really the angle that we should be taking in regenerative food system transition. And it's so important in the moments when you're the only weirdo to go to the places where you're not the weird one, but this is just what we all agree on, that is our foundation. We all agree that the soil is the foundation for healthcare, and it's more of a matter how can we now make it mainstream, and how can we really try introduce it to the general public health. So that was a very important moment for me also to learn from US what is happening there, as we have so many amazing pioneers working on the connection of regenerative healthcare. And I came back with kind of slowly knowing what is the pathway that we should be taking in the Netherlands, where I was living and I am living at this time, which is the food pharmacy programs. Food pharmacies really, for me, are bringing the angle between healthcare, farming, and also social justice in a very tangible ways. Those are programs where you provide, in our case, for low-income diabetes type 2 patients, which have a lot of barriers to work on their lifestyle and have a lot of barriers to really be able to focus on their health. And you try to remove all of those barriers by providing them weekly organic fresh food boxes with amazing products from local regenerative organic farmers, grains, beans, vegetables. We help them with recipes, with cooking workshops. Now we also build an app, and I saw in Otto there was also technology component. And when we talk about technology and resources, we found a guy that built a totally app for free for us, just because we work on an impact that he believes in. So I think that's also a really big lesson in my journey, is that you start with nothing. You don't know how you're going to pay your rent. You have to ask your parents to help for support, and then at some point, if you take on, I think, vision and mission bigger than yourself, there's more and more people just wanting to contribute to it, and some of the things do get better and easier. So we already ran two randomized controlled trials in the Netherlands. As far as I understood, we are the first one for sure in the Netherlands, and probably maybe even the first one in EU working with this particular model. You can see Nargis here on the right. She was the participant in our first randomized controlled trial, and in just 3 months, Nargis lost almost 6 kilo. She went from 6 medications to one medication, and she was so enthusiastic that we hired her, and she became our ambassador, and she's now helping in the next cohort in our programs in Rotterdam and Den Haag, where we work. And just kind of wrapping it up, so we are working, of course, on the model on the ground, but it was always an ambition to say, okay, but if we want the farmers to have stable, long-term extra income, we have to go away from just philanthropic donations year by year, because it's not the most sustainable way for anybody. That's why we started to work on this agri-health outcome payment model. And I'm not going to go into too much technicalities, but we coined this term agri-health 2 years ago, I think. And in our understanding, agri-health means recognition of the impact that the agriculture has on the healthcare system and working on integrating the policy, research, education, and funding to align both sectors with preventative health under focal point. And under this payment model, this is exactly what we are trying to work out with local municipality and local health insurers, where we basically say, well, we can calculate how much healthcare savings there can be done with a program like food pharmacy. And instead of just paying for people treatments once they are already sick, let's try to pay for reversal of the sickness. Let's try to prepay for the outcomes like reduction of diabetes, like reduction of weight, in a program in which those who get this positive outcomes, like governments, are prepaying together with impact investors. We're in the process. It's a collaborative process. Let's see if we manage to do so. But I really hope that I will be able to come back to you in 2 years or something and report we did it. And even if not, I always think that we're on like an acacia tree, which is the one that is there to kind of soften the soil. And over time, even if we die, there'll be other people coming along and building on our ability to soften the soil. So no matter what will happen, I'm very happy that this is what we're working on. And just a final moment to also reflect upon. So as I mentioned to you, I was very happy to be the only European on this Regenerative Healthcare Conference back in 2022. And last year we were able to bring our own conference to the Netherlands. We hosted a Soil Health, Human Health Symposium where we brought the topics of regenerative healthcare and nutrient density and food pharmacies to the Netherlands, which felt very, very special to kind of turn the table around and just a couple of years ago being the listener and now being able to be the one who is bringing an offering to our community. So if you would like to ask us any questions, feel free. I think that today we'll also have a few moments left, but I'm very open to tell you all about our work as we also try to help other people to set food pharmacies. And I'm just very grateful to be here today.
Wow, Zuzanna. So powerful and so many intersections with what we heard from Christa too. So it's lovely that you two actually had met each other. And really just so many pieces that touched me in what you shared. And I know the group here, I've seen things coming up in the chat of what's resonating with folks. But just to note the ways that you felt you were starting with nothing, or starting with ideas, or starting with something small. And we often talk about starting with the seed. So just hearing the way you did that and lifted that off into so many different directions that I think touch so many of us. And just seeing that this should be quite simple, but it's actually one of the most complicated systems. So I love that, and your encouragement for each of us to be the weirdo and to find the others. I've often felt like that. I felt, that, oh, I'm just outside the norm, and to be reminded that not only is it okay to be outside the norm, but that's actually where we can find the most potent and poignant ideas of where the system actually needs to change. So, thank you for these reminders and for the great work around soil health as it relates to human health. It really feels so clear when you share it this way, and so very much at the crux of what it would mean to shift to regenerative. So thank you for your great work and for sharing it with us here. Um, yeah, wonderful. So I would like to invite us into a little moment as a community before we come back to a kind of larger dialogue with our speakers and guests in this conversation to just move into a little moment of journaling. We're going to do it slightly different today because we're going to have musical accompaniment from Tony. So I like to think of this as how Tony journals, because Tony is kind of live sharing his resonance through his music. So as he shares what's coming up for him based on what he heard and what is moving through him, this aspect of the social arts, will invite you to get out a paper and pen, get a notebook, whatever is close by and easy, and jot down your thoughts. So, really moving from what you heard and what might be happening in the head into the hands through the space of the heart. So the key to journaling, for those of you who may not be familiar with this practice, is to just keep the pen on the paper and write what is coming up for you. So I'll give a few questions to prompt you, and we'll put those up in a title card for you to be able to read them if you forget. But really, the most important thing is to just keep the pen to paper and see what comes up. So the three questions that we'll sit with for a couple of minutes here is: what touched you from what you heard in the stories and examples? What resonates with you from your own experience? And what is a word or phrase staying with you now, which we'll invite you to share. And just a reminder of Otto's questions up at the top, of just looking at these cross-cutting areas and how they are embodied in the stories. So what touched you from what you heard in the stories and examples? What resonates with you from your own experience? And what is a word or phrase staying with you now? Enjoy the accompaniment from Tony and this practice. as Tony closes here, we can begin to share in the chat anything that has come up for you, a word or a phrase. Wow, Tony, thank you. Beautiful. And I'll read a few of these out in the chat, just seeing what's coming in. I love this first one. Actually, there is no waste. Soil to soul. It found me, longing for belonging, a knowing beyond knowing, small steps with purpose, joy and certainty. Be the weirdo. I just need to do a first step. It is worth it. Agriculture found me, regenerating ourselves, courage and tenacity, following the spark of curiosity. Such great admiration for these women following their bliss, softening the soil. It's okay to be the weirdo. Curiosity in the small things. Your capacity will grow to live with the uncertainty. Incubation of regeneration. It finds you seeding and unfolding. Beautiful. Awareness of the whole. Active hope, joy, hope, food. Food is medicine. Soil, our life companion. Connection to earth is health, power, freedom. Bravery to take the next steps without having the answers. Wow. There are many more in the chat, and we'd like to bring our panelists back up, or our speakers back up, and have a little just conversation here, and maybe go a little bit deeper just from what we're also maybe hearing and reading in the chat as well. But maybe we just have a little short discussion here before we move into breakouts. So yeah, I think we're all in the room.
So
Yeah, Otto.
maybe to kick it off with a question to you, Christa and Zuzanna. So let's just say all of us, the rest of us, right here, we are aspiring weirdos, right? So we want to also be more weirdos than perhaps we sometimes are. And you two run a masterclass for us, right? So, because, I have what's sticking in my mind is the coffee waste, right? I have seen that before, but it didn't activate my agency, Zuzanna, right? And the picking of the herbs, Christa, in the backyard, I have seen that before as well. It didn't activate my highest agency. So I want to, in a little moment, all of us will go into little breakouts, right? So I want to put you a little bit on the spot. What is it? So if you see as your students, right? So who would like what? There's something that you're doing, kind of that is very relevant to our current moment, right? What is it we can learn from that? And I'm sure you have had this question many times, and you have seen people trying similar or aspiring to do, and then sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. Seeing, from growing the larger garden and ecosystem that you're currently attending to, what is it that you notice there, and what is it that can be learned? And also, kind of, at the end of the day, why we are here together? Because we need a movement around these things that you're, creating pathways for. And so when you look at that bigger picture, what comes to your mind, kind of where others, like the rest of us, could be perhaps helpful? And I saw already great things in the chat. So there's a PhD students who wants to dive into the finance part, Susanna, kind of what you mentioned, and so on. So it's just kind of giving each of you a little bit of possibility to reflect on the larger picture, but also really on the personal side of how we can move from just seeing the coffee waste to activating our best potential and agency.
I will start with, can I answer? I can answer, no? Yeah. I just want to say, I think one thing, because often I hear a lot of people wanting to move to regenerative system or, yeah. And I think there is a tendency of people wanting to kind of put a big, big line across their past life and say, I forget everything that I knew. And now I'm just going to take a permaculture course and I'm going to start from the beginning as a permaculture trainer. And I think it's such a like loss of capabilities, because I think when we talk about regeneration, Christa and I are in the regenerative healthcare farming, but we need regenerative finance and regenerative marketing and all kind of reconsideration. So I think the biggest ask for me to all the beautiful people coming to this system is please build upon your experiences or your knowledge and your degrees and your lived experiences, because it's so much more powerful when you can add the layer of regeneration to what you have already known so well. And then it's also way easier for you to make it, because I also want to emphasize it's not so easy to just say, oh, now I will work for generation and I will try to create nice sustainable income for myself. It is hard because there's way less money than in conventional system that is extracted. There's way more capital there. We're talking about peanuts compared to the conventional system. So if you want to make sure that you can work out with the peanuts that are there, please use what you already know and your backpack that you already have. That's all I have, I think, to say.
Yeah, my approach to it is recognizing that I take a Socratic approach to everything that I do, and that's necessary in order for me to see what I couldn't see before. To Otto's point in regards to yes, you had this knowledge and knowing, you grew up on a farm, but you didn't have the same uh, awakening, if you will. And based on my experience, you witnessed the same things I have in the past. And what was different for me going into that country by myself, a place I had never been before, was that I was open. And I understood what I didn't know, and I welcomed in what I did not know, and really thinking about Rene Descartes. I love him as a French philosopher, and I think therefore I am. And it's really about that unknowing, not knowing things, and being okay with that, and then allowing yourself to be able to open up to then be activated. And that's when your knowledge, the knowledge base that you have, and everything that you've been taught and everything that you know can then come in like a flood. And that's the only reason why my medical background now fuses so well with my healthcare background. Excuse me, with my agricultural background. I don't believe I would be able to do this work well unless I had both. So, yeah, both of those things were necessary, and it required me to be humble in the Descartesian framework.
Wonderful. I see some just a question in the chat, which I thought is a lovely question about, do we have our agency activated on the same issues, or can we become leaders behind and support people like Christa and Zuzanna? And I just love the way that I love the way that we can be activated in so many different ways. And I wonder if you have any thoughts about kind of how agency can be activated in yourselves and in your communities, how people can support and connect with these types of movements, either as change makers themselves or as well, we can all be a change. What an interesting word, change maker. But just if you have thoughts on any of this, experience of being activated to make a difference, to make a change, and what that can look like.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just share. Going back to one thing that I said with agriculture found me, but you can put, a blank in front of found me, right? Whatever that is that you're that's not necessarily that you're pursuing, but that's potentially pursuing you, and you may not even know what that is yet. And while we were journaling, I took some time to write, and I said, so I surrender what it has for me, and in this case, agriculture. So I surrender what agriculture has for me to what agriculture has for me. I am but a mere vessel with the only fuel needed to blaze a path forward is gratitude. And so I really feel like the fuel, the thing that kind of like the catalyst, if you will, the only thing you absolutely need is gratitude in order for what it is that is pursuing you to truly find you.
And maybe I would add to it, I think once you're on a journey of looking for the thing that is really moving you towards making changes, I think it just needs to feel enjoyable because, there's so many ways to suffer. And I think if you're going to change your career or put yourself towards something new, I think the community of people that you're going to do it with and the thing itself just has to be really joyful and enjoyable because there will be many difficult moments, but you need to have a source that you can keep on coming back. And as Christa was saying in her talk, like, yes, it's worth it because agriculture is the culture for me, and whatever it is for you, I think you need to find the thing that is worth it, despite a lot of things.
I thought that was a really interesting aspect also of your stories, the community, right? Kind of the people around you that you convened, and that is the source of that energy and of that joy, Susanna, what you talked about. And then the other aspect, perhaps also kind of to when we now move into the small groups to be kept up, is Krista, you mentioned the word surrendering, right? What is it that I am willing to surrender, right? That's a very, very deep personal question. And there is an aspect of surrendering that requires a level of trust and that requires a level of commitment and a level of letting go and love that is quite profound. So I think kind of this surrendering that you mentioned as part of your own process is a really important aspect for us that we perhaps also can use as a lens.
I definitely have so many more questions and thoughts, and I would love to go deeper with all of you. And I also want to give each of us a chance to connect into what is sparking for each of us. So as much as I do feel like we could go on for another hour, I thank you for coming up and for sharing some deeper thoughts on your talks and for inviting us in a variety of ways, on a philosophical level, on a kind of real tangible, how do I make this happen? Um, it's both, it's all, really helpful, I think, for each of us here, and a reminder that we can, and we're not just kind of subject to. So thank you for this. I would like to move us into breakouts where we can kind of sense into what's going on. We're still about almost still 600 of us here. And I know some of us did have to leave at the top of the hour. I echo and remind that this is where the magic lives, in being able to see and sense together, in really understanding what's going on inside me and what's going on inside our community here in the Presencing series. So we're going to invite you into these small conversations. It's going to be 10 minutes. And just to sense into what is living within you now. What aspects of regeneration are you already seeing? Where are you seeing it cut across the sectors that Otto mentioned, and maybe where are you seeing possibilities. So you can just pick one of those. Kind of where are you seeing regeneration living within you now? Where are you seeing it cut across the sectors? Please, if you need Japanese or Chinese has been happening already, but if you need Japanese, you can move. I think the link is going to show up in the chat. Yes, the link is going to show up in the chat for the Japanese session. The Chinese has been happening concurrently. If English is not your first language, or if you get put into a room with folks who English is not their first language, we are doing our best to accommodate all languages. So please enjoy the time together. If it's a gesture that you just want to share with each other, we invite you to do that. And just being for a few moments in community with one another reminds us that we're not just taking this information in alone. So please enjoy the time together, share with one another. Remember that we don't know what the other person had for breakfast or dinner. So just enjoying where we may be in whatever part of the world. So we'll be back in just about 10 minutes, and we'll see you again for our closing. So we are all coming back into the room here. And I just like to imagine us having been in our little breakouts and pulling our chairs back in and getting back into the circle together so we can all just kind of say, welcome back in. There's a space for you right here. So wherever you are, we are just landing back into the room. If you can mute yourself, if you happen to have come off mute to connect with each other. I love seeing us in the gallery. I love seeing all of the familiar faces and new faces, and I love hearing from each of us. That said, we want to try and give space to the fact that we said we were going to close at the 30, so we are going to do that. And I wonder, in order to preserve that, let's hear from Kelvy. And Kelvy, maybe you have been let's see where you are. Yeah, okay, there we are. So we'll pull up the image as well, and maybe you have thoughts that came up for you throughout the session, or any kind of pockets of wisdom to hear, and then we'll do a resonance practice with the image.
Yeah, thanks, Antoinette, and thanks everyone for being here. It's always so impressive to me how many of us choose to gather to sense into the current moment and find some light to guide us together. And I think the only thing that I leave with is the balance of activity and stillness, and how hard it is to keep that intact when we're in a space of so much noise. And so I appreciate both. I appreciate everything that we heard around what's happening, and I'm sure what many of you are doing. And I also am reminded of the value of the space between the pauses and the way we create opportunities for deep reflection. Antoinette, back to you.
Thank you, Kelvy. Yes, so I know that people are asking for additional moments here, but let's pull the image back up, and let's see the image if we can get it into full screen. So in the top right of your screen, you should be able to click on view and then full screen. And let's just sit with this for a moment and notice what we are seeing here as we sit with the image, what we might be sensing, and perhaps what we're called to. So just sitting with this for a moment in stillness. And then using the prompts, I see, I sense, or I feel. You can put in the chat what you might be seeing, sensing, or feeling, and I will read a few of these out. And this is the opportunity to just notice what is still ringing in you from the session and with this image. So what is still here for us? I see, I sense, or I feel. I see the people in the roots of the soil reaching together. I see courage. I feel the soil is alive. I see people forming of roots in the soil reaching to the surface. I see the sphere at the center. I sense small steps in the garden and I feel an ache for connections. I see the sun, soul of the earth. I see islands of coherence. I sense fingers in the soil and feel a sore back. I see potential. I feel hopeful. I sense change. I see rebirth. I see and feel many layers of awareness. I feel the fracture of absencing and war. I feel this emerging living system activating. I feel hopeful. I sense opportunity in the collective. I see we are all connected. I sense synchronicity. I feel a collective breathing. I'm sensing regenerative energy. I feel the light we all care for. Thank you, Kelvy, for this image. Thank you all for your shares in the chat. I know there's so many more. Please feel free to continue to read through them and the resonance that we have of this session and of this current moment. We look forward to seeing you again in the next session. In the in-between, we are offering for you to be able to find or create local meetups and ways to connect with each other. We know that so much of what is happening in our communities is it's sort of under the surface. So we're attempting to kind of make that more visible. So please do look for the link that Maria just put in the chat about finding or creating local meetups. To look for language meetups and the recording of the session, you will find it on the website, uschool.org, where you can see the Presencing series offerings. You can share about the series on social media and throughout the interwebs with the hashtag Presencing Series 2026. And that'll be a way for us to stay connected with each other. In the in-between, we will also have a follow-up email with recordings. So thank you all. We can all unmute and say goodbye. Sorry.
Thank you so much for this amazing moment.
Merci
Thank you.
beaucoup. Au revoir.
Global
Thank
later.
Tschüss.
Bye.
Have a nice
Shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Arigato.
Obrigado.
So much.
Thank
Blessings.
you.
Blessings.
Obrigada, gratidão. Por favor.
I love it. I love that one.
There's nothing more joyful than seeing joy on people's faces.
Amen.
Yes,
We need more of this.
Yes.
And global joy, spreading the joy around the globe.
Yes.
Thank you to Otto and the Presencing Institute and our presenters and everyone.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Good luck to Center City.
Clearly, we don't want to leave.
No, more.
Oh, goodness. Whoa, I think that says something really powerful. Good grief. Whew. To see
Yeah.
all these people connected is really hopeful.
Yes.
What a gift.
A gift.